So welcome to our fireside chat. We're talking today about HR and IT and building that partnership that AI requires. And today I'm joined by two amazing professionals from Witham. I want to welcome Max Hervé, Head of Cloud Engineering, and Andrea Mondello, Principal in AI Transformation. So welcome both of you.
Thanks, Alina. Good to be
Thank
here.
Yep. It's a great
So
topic. Great topic.
I know, right? Controversial. So we're going to be getting into that. I'm excited to see where we take this. So, um, I've been, as I was sharing with you before, I've always been in this HR tech world. It's kind of like in between world between HR and IT. Not technical enough to be considered an IT professional, right? But still dangerous enough to be able to have conversations and bridge that gap. So. Um, I think of, HR being that foundation on understanding people and that employee experience when with IT and understanding systems and the security, the data, the infrastructure, and the risk. And if these two groups are not really talking early in the process, especially around AI adoption, we get into the messiness of data as I said it now. So let's get started with share a little bit about yourself, your title, your role, maybe about Witham, and where have you seen HR and IT work together around technology or in this AI world right now?
Take it away, Max.
All right, thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Alina. So again, I'm Max Serve, the head of Microsoft Cloud Practice here at Witham. I've been at the company for 9 years now. And so what my job is all about is about essentially solving business issues using technology. Uh, I don't drive with the technology. I tend to drive with more of something that's tangible. And then I apply whatever is available to make sure we get past that. So working in IT, working in AI for several years, we're involved with lots of departments, including HR.
Mhm.
Cross, department projects are always very challenging. Um, Projects with HR or projects with finance are challenging. So I've been learning a lot over the years. And I think, this is a very good call because I believe that HR and IT really don't understand each other. And I know we're going to talk about this quite a bit, but there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misalignment between the two groups here. So, yeah, excited to be sharing more stories later on. Andrea, over to you.
Yeah, Andrea Mondello. I have been, as we said, I lead Wickham's AI transformation practice, which means I'm not a super technologist. I work more in the realm of governance, strategy, adoption, all those kind of things, helping organizations determine, where is the right place to kind of pull the lever on AI, and then how to make AI, your use of AI, a system versus just thinking about a tool. You want it needs to be a system, not a tool, because the tool should be able to pop in and out. It should be replaceable, right? I mean, Claude just came out with another model today.
Yes.
So, it's going to be, these tools are going to pop in and out. All the industry tools are being, everybody's coming out with a tool or embedding AI into the tool they already have or whatever. It's going to be never changing. So I help organizations think about the organizational piece, the systemic piece, and how to do it right so it scales across the organization. So I've been with them for 6 years. Before that, I had my own company for 7 years doing digital transformation. And definitely worked in IT departments as well as worked with HR. I mean, I've been in HR work, obviously that role working with HR. So I've kind of seen it from a bunch of different sides here. So really excited to be here today. And maybe I'll get us started with this because I think that this question about HR and IT, I want to turn it on its head just slightly.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the no one group inside the business should be driving AI adoption. Where that should be coming from is the top. That's a leadership function. That's a leadership question. So now it may be that some people, there's resistance in the organization, and that's a different thing that you have to deal with. But ideally, this is coming from the top. So ideally, if it's coming from the top, both HR and IT are getting the same message from the top so that they can be aligned. Of course, that's ideally. We don't all live in the ideal world. We don't all live in ideal organizations, and every organization, like every family, has its own dysfunctions, right? And as you said, Max, this has been in the past historically a fraught relationship. I'm not sure why, but this has been a fraught relationship with IT and HR. So I just want to put that out there and have that framing, because that's really, if there's a problem, the source of the problem is that one consistent message is not coming from you.
And it's so true, because then you don't have the support you need. And each group then does what they can with what they have when they have it.
That's right.
And, right? It becomes a challenge very fast. I love you both mentioned, Max, you said, I don't start with the tools, I start with the tangible, right? And Andrea, you said, I don't start with the tools, I start with the systems in place. So I love that because that's consistent to what I'm seeing too in my business is that most people will go and try to solve a problem. They don't know most of the time what problem they're trying to solve. They might have a process that is broken or not effective, so they just slap another AI tool on top, and then they don't get what they expect they will get. So it becomes very fast this disorganized, messy project, and then untangling it goes back to the purpose. Like, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to solve? What is a business process?
And peace defense, they're usually the ones that have to untangle, which is why they will resist a lot of these projects, right? Let's be clear. So I think that it's really important to take the time up front to get on the same page about the goals, to have specific, HR, if HR wants to adopt a certain tool, they should have specific measurable goals, and they should not go around IT. First of all, I don't, Max, you tell me, you talk to CIOs and CTOs, but from what I'm hearing, there's a general panic around not having visibility into what's going on in AI.
Yeah, it's very common. And again, I think this applies to both large organizations and small organizations, because some companies out there, right, they may have like two people in HR.
Yeah.
They may have two or three people in IT, and you tell them you need all that structure. It can be challenging, but again, just follow the same framework, but don't make it, overcomplicated, right? Don't create barriers between all those silos. They're all gonna be silos, right? Even if you're two people in one team, that's a silo. Let's just make that communication going from the get-go. And so the way I've been recommending people, coming up with their ideas is actually to use Chat GPT for ideation, right? So from what I've learned in the past is HR would kind of go to IT and say, hey, we need this tool. What works very well is HR does the homework and they give it to IT. Okay, so by homework, meaning, you go to, let's say again, Chat GPT, you write down all the tasks that you do on a daily basis. Then you also ask Chat GPT, which task could be, I don't know, automated, offloaded to AI. Basically just kind of describe your problem and have ChatGPT do the work for you. Then come up with like a level of effort, right? Maybe you say, this task takes me like 6 hours a week, and AI might tell you, well, we can probably do it in 30 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is. And then also calculate the ROI and again, use ChatGPT for that. So you can create kind of your own business case here without having to chase people left and right. And once you have that data, you can go to IT and say, hey, I did my research. This is what that tool does. Or this is what the end result would be. I found a couple tools here and there. And what are your thoughts? Right? I do feel like right now everything is kind of dumped into IT and it's like, hey, IT, we need this to be set up. And IT is confused, like, what are we trying to do? Who's going to support this? Blah, blah, blah. So again, we're lucky to have actually those tools already to essentially prepare the organization to roll out tools that are going to be more focused in terms of what you're doing. So use ChatGPT as your intern, as your genius on the side, and then package that information up for other departments, basically.
Andrea, anything to add on your end?
Yeah, certainly using AI to do this work is great. I think it also I think HR departments should think about this. The adoption of AI in the organization is, as you've pointed out, a change management project. This is a people project.
Yes.
In the main, it's not a technology project. It's a people project. And it's not just about learning a tool, it's about learning a new way to work, a new way to think, right? Like how many people would have said, oh, I have this problem, I need to make a case for something. Oh, let me have ChatGPT do it, right? Like that's a new way of thinking, right? So it's good for HR, a selling case for HR to go to IT and say, we want to adopt AI internally is to say, we have to lead the change management in this organization. So we need to understand what it feels like.
Yeah.
So I definitely think HR should be pilot group with the caveat that you should be obviously, we all know that there are certain, hiring decisions and things like that you have to be exceedingly careful about using AI in that whole candidate process. That's a whole other topic, which
That's a whole other thing.
you could talk much more definitively on that than I could. But for sure, as long as you're telling HR in the beginning that that's not what you're doing, because then they probably have to escalate to legal or whatever, now we have. As long as you're doing that, I think you're good. And the other thing is, I think this is an opportunity for HR to help drive policy. Because talking about what employees may and may not do with AI, I mean, that's like an employee handbook thing, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, what you may and may not do, right? So, I mean, we have an AI policy with them, and there's things in our handbook, and that there's all that kind of good stuff, and that again is going to be partly an HR function, both owning it and communicating it. So I just think I actually haven't seen an organization where HR is leading the AI charge.
Yes, exactly.
But I do think it's a great place to start.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. I love this so much, Andrea. I can't tell you how much. Because that is the mindset that I'm trying to bring and help people shift. And I think there is such a huge opportunity for HR, IT, and operations to work together. I think if just IT leads it, it very fast becomes a compliance risk, right?
Yeah.
If operations leads it, it's going to be productivity based, very, right? But then the people side might be missed. And I really think it's the three departments together that they gotta figure out a way of truly making this a change management and a human really adoption. And I don't even think that adoption is the right word. I think it's integration is the right word because adapting is behavioral. And integration to me, it's behavioral and technology together. And I don't know, that's more food for thought and throwing it out there. I would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the idea of having HR driving this. I think everybody's doing it backwards right now. Um, so just to give you an example, right, we recently did a project. It was a Workday migration from the US to the UK. So that project was completely segmented, right? We had the HR US team, we had the HR UK team involved, we had the Workday administrators, the Workday vendor, the IT US team, IT UK team, and we were assisting the IT team. And we had our own project manager. We had no idea where the requirement came from. They were like, was the US merging with the UK? Are they just consolidating into one system? Like we had no context whatsoever. And so we kind of had to work backwards from there. And that shouldn't be this way, right? It
Yeah.
should be done strategically, and then you introduce the right players at the right time. But at least you show the roadmap to everyone, right? And so this is tough, right? Again, being in consulting, we're kind of like, firefighters, I want to say. So we get in there and it's like, oh my gosh, there's kind of a mess and we're here to help out. But once we see kind of the damage that's being done, because again, that obviously didn't go very smooth here, we are able to kind of document those lessons and then teach other people like, hey, this is how you should be doing it going forward. So again, this is not really AI specific in general. It's technologies really doesn't matter what it is in terms of technology, but yeah, processes need to be in place. And again, now let's add AI to that bucket, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned something. So before we're talking about the business case and the importance of that business case to really have everybody be on the same page.
Mhm.
And I think the more I think about business cases, the more I think that it's a skill. And I don't know that a lot of people have that skill to build a successful business case so that it can go to IT, it can go to the CIO and the CISO and say, here is what we need and why we need it. And here's how much it would cost. And oh, maybe before I start looking at tools, maybe you help me with an RFP. You help me with how do I approach this? This is the outcome I need. Now, maybe you help me with a vendor selection because you understand better those types of relationships. And I think that that's a missed opportunity. But without having the skill of building a business case, that can easily become a mess too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we kind of take it for granted, but it's not like, and people are busy too, right? It's not like they got time to think about it. That's why again, throwing anything at ChatGPT and getting a head start is probably good, but then having like more of an expert kind of guiding you along the journey is definitely valuable here. Because you're right, they don't have a background in doing this. It's not like part of what they've been doing. And yeah, that's a good point, Alina.
I think I just want to address, I'm going to take the conversation in a little bit of different direction right now, Amina. Just want to address something that every organization needs to be upfront. They need to be very clear. So when you introduce AI into an organization, what is in every employee's head? Oh, they're going to replace me. Am I going to be replaced by AI? That's universal right now. There's a lot of fear. So we need to be sure, and even people in IT may think that.
Mhm.
And even people that you may have several people in HR who are pushing to bring AI in, and you may have several people who are very silently in their own mind saying no. Right? So I also think that everybody in the organization is affected by this. And I think HR is in a very good position to make sure that they and every other department answer this question. And the question is, what is the employee to do with the time that is saved?
Mm.
If you, and you don't just say, well, we're going to assign you to higher level work. No. What does that even mean? Can we not? You need to be, each department needs to be very specific and say, okay, now that we've brought in AI, we've done a pilot in our department, we've used it for this use case. We see that I'm just making this up now, our collections people free up 2 hours a day. With that 2 hours, we'd like to train you on a new skill. Have you be calling accounts, flagging accounts that they're not in bad arrears yet, but they look like they're going there.
Yeah.
Like you do. I mean, every department, including HR, has a whole list of stuff that they never get to. It's important, but not urgent.
What you're saying, though, is that we have to get to the task level.
We do.
And I think this is where HR technologies like HRIS systems like Workday or any of those and also internal HR practices need to be in alignment. So for example, if the job description is not clear enough, so I'm going to make this a data problem because and for me everything is a data problem.
Right.
Right? So if your job description is not in alignment and doesn't have outlined the necessary skills, duties, and actual tasks that job entails, then you can't identify which part of this job do I augment, automate, whatever, which tasks, right, are left off that the human can do versus the machine. Right. So until we are able as HR departments and HR functions, until we're able to get to the task level of workforce planning, I think it's going to be very difficult. And we're seeing it already, right? You see the Amazons of the world letting people go because of AI, and now suddenly their AI token usage is, all the way high, and it would have been cheaper if you kept some of the talent you had, if you had a way to assess it correctly.
Yeah, and that really is the key, right? If you're not measuring, if you're not measuring, you don't know your ROI, and you can't measure what you can't see.
I think most people, or pretty much all people, nobody documents their own task, like, myself included. Like, there's just so many things out there. And I think, again, yeah, documenting that list of what you're currently doing and what you could be doing that you never get to, right? And that's the advantage, right? Anything that's going to be repetitive, who wants to be doing this? And again, we're talking about AI here. It's more like automation. AI is more the umbrella word here, but yeah, you shouldn't be doing repetitive tasks. You should be helping the business grow and improving the employee satisfaction, things like that. And again, that automation or AI project should allow you to get to it. But to you guys' point, you got to document them and know what that list is before you get started.
Yeah.
Back to IT though, I want to talk about something there. So I often have clients come to me and say, hey, we want to get in on the AI bandwagon. Let's, do AI. Let's do AI to do this thing. And when you look at the problem, it really is a very simple automation. And in fact, you shouldn't use AI for that thing because you need a deterministic result. Remember, AI is probabilistic, not deterministic, right? So we want a deterministic result. We want the same result every time, calculated the same way, right? And so there are a lot of organizations that have not even made that transformation. They're still doing stuff manually. And they want to kind of leapfrog and say, we're going to wave the magic AI wand and it's going to fix this problem. And sometimes a very simple automation is the best way to solve it. And actually, HR can probably tell you that. In many HR departments, they're in charge of, automation technologies like, Power Automate or some of these other workflow tools that are out there, right? They already know how to do that piece. So again, this is a reason why you should partner with them. You may be thinking this thing is a good use case for AI. Maybe it's really could be much cheaper and more quickly done, and IT has that knowledge. The other thing I want to say is, although again, IT should not be driving this rolling out AI in an organization. I'll say it again. It might be controversial. IT should not be driving AI rollout. But they will, of necessity, hopefully, know what's going on. You may only be able to see HR. They may know. And so you want to make sure this is another reason why you need to get together.
Yeah.
Because nobody has the whole picture.
Yeah.
And you need to kind of, the blind man and the elephant, right? You need to assemble the picture by having all people, but it's very likely IT has a broader view of what's happening.
So what is maybe something that you wish HR leaders understood about IT roles in this adoption? I love how you're approaching it with we shouldn't be driving it, but we have to be in the conversation. We have a piece of this puzzle, figure out a way to work together. I guess what would be one key partnership approach, I guess, that could be helpful?
So in terms of AI, I think the main concern for IT is security, right?
Yeah.
Especially anything that's got to do with data, which is what we're talking about. Again, not an HR person, but if you're an HR, expert out there, in terms of, thinking about the business case and everything we've talked about so far, you gotta start thinking about the security and the damage that something would trigger if something bad were to happen. We've seen some instances where, again, data gets leaked because of AI, and then it creates chaos within the organization. You see other things on the news that essentially compromise the reputation of the firm. So I think, again, if you start talking to IT and you bring up the topic about security and you ask them, what do you guys think about it? Can you look into this for us? Right? Because the more research you do on the AI tools out there, the more interesting the websites are. I think they do a great job at marketing. And that's all great, right? Until you look into the fine print and how the data is being stored and where it's being stored and everything else. And you're like, well, this is not a good tool for our organization. So I think HR needs to think a little more IT, but really just kind of asking about, is this secure? Is this going to follow the policy and so forth? And then IT, might get more buy-in and be like, oh, okay, they really did their research and they want to collaborate with us.
Yeah.
But the whole point is to find that shared language. And again, I'm not asking HR people to be IT experts. It's just kind of throwing those keywords might help, kind of get past those barriers.
And the data aspect though, and the privacy, I mean, that's important for us, right? We touch PII, we touch PHI, we touch so much data, and that is and at the HR tech level. So for the HR technology teams or people operations teams that they are managing HR information systems, data privacy, data governance is, and especially if you're in organizations that you have to go by like SOC audits or, anything like that, we have to. So, and to me, that is a shared language when I think, right, that is part of our shared language to some extent.
Definitely a way in. That's definitely
What are you thinking, Andrea? I can see it spinning. I can see, tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to, I think it would be really great for, we talked about the business case, and I think that's very important. I think it would be really great for HR to have defined ahead of time before they ask for any tool or anything like that, to have defined what it is exactly that people in HR will be allowed to do with AI and what they will not be allowed to do with AI. So I think this is something that will give IT confidence to say, okay, we can move forward. They've done this homework. It's not just how much is it going to cost, what is the best tool, what meets our needs. It's also, we've already thought about that process I talked about earlier. We've thought through this. And again, in some organizations, there will be people in HR who can help them think through that. In others, there won't. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing that we will come in and do. Or HR could do it, but they're just so swamped, there's like a million reasons why they might not. But I think having that alignment of saying, this is what we will specifically, very specifically allow you to do with HR, with IT, and this is what we will not. This is the kind of data you may not use, and, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. That I think will go a long way to relieving the fear. Because at the end of the day, if there's an exfiltration of data, who's going to get in trouble? IT. So I get the fear and the reluctance, to just be wholeheartedly on it. I think that's it. It's giving, I'm just using this, giving each other grace, like trying to see the other person, the other department's point of view. You really need to, that's, I think, the way you have to start.
And that's where I think, Max, where you were coming from with that shared language of, if we do have a shared language, we can understand each other and we can figure out a way how we can build a partnership. And I guess, and thinking about partnership, like, how does the conversation look like? Are there terms that mean different things? I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, how do we build this shared language?
I think I think we talked about it earlier, but we talk a lot about the AI and technology piece on the business problem, but at the end of the day, it's communication and relationships. And it's always going to be like this no matter what you do, right?
That's
If you're
true.
trying to sell a service or a product, whatever your company does, it's going to be about that relationship. So always think about those relationships from the internal side of it to the external side of it, which is the customers, right? But we never think about this within the organization. So we got to apply that model of like treating our customers the same as we're treating our employees. And I think if we think that way, we'll start building those bonds between all those groups. Again, I know it's easier said than done. Again, started with this, we'll be able to kind of start, those discussions, and I'll take you a long way. So baby steps, but at the end of the day, on my end, I've been able to create great relationships with marketing, for example. I got no background with marketing, but I've got the relationship, and we're able to get stuff done together. And we try to share the same language, right? Obviously, there's a huge knowledge gap on my end, and the same for them, or they know kind of the high level pieces,
Yeah.
not the details. But I think it has to come from that people piece.
And I love how you're putting it back to the basics, right? Like, you gotta build rapport with people before you start working on a project together. Build rapport with people, build relationships with people. And then once that work starts to show up, you already have a trusting base, a foundation to start. So I think going back to like the basics of human connection.
Which we tend to forget, right?
Yeah, when you get hung up on the tool, right?
Yes.
I do think that there is a runway for some education for HR on, basic AI concepts, because I do think as somebody who did work in IT for a while, it was very frustrating when somebody, an employee would call up and say, give me a whole earful about something. And it was so non-specific. And so like there was no way I could help them. Like I had to ask 27 more questions before I could get to the, and I know it was frustrating for them, but they didn't have the language to say, I've literally had users when I say to them, well, open the browser, and they're like, what's a browser? And back in the day, look for the little E on your taskbar, like really like so, and I'm not saying, HR people, that's HR people. There were a lot of other people. But I guess what I'm saying is the having some background, having done, again, some homework, you understand that HR is AI is a very broad term that includes machine learning. What is machine learning? What is generative AI? What's the difference? You have something to talk about that's a little more technical than just, AI, which is what does that even mean? Well, again, when clients call and say, hey, we want to implement AI, I'm like, okay, that's great. What,
Yep.
what does that mean to you, right?
And everybody thinks AI is ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, when you get that 27 times a day, it's going to frustrate you as an IT professional. It gets frustrating. So it is helpful to have some background, and there's like a ton of courses out there you could take, LinkedIn Learning and, all kinds of different things. Maybe you offer them, I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly that. And I think that's where I want to help others to build that AI literacy. And I even think of like AI fitness because it's really a muscle where you actually, the more you use tools, the more you start to understand the systems and how they can connect and the different, like the systems thinking more, not necessarily systems in the sense of tools, right? It's more of that, how do these tools could potentially work together, but what does it require human versus, technology intervention? I think that's where our critical thinking has to be more honed in. And I love the organizations that I've been part of that I had a dotted line to the CIO were probably the ones that had the better alignment between HR and IT. And the ones that I didn't have that connection to the CIO, it was always a struggle because we were not in alignment.
whenever there's a HRIS that is not directly under the CIO's purview, that's always that right away that makes the relationship one,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Or a small organization that you have a payroll company that is running your HRIS basically, and you just do the vendor management and you submit the employees' hours, and that's pretty much it. And that's where there's a big disconnect as to like how does your HR tech stack fit together in the bigger picture. And I think there is definitely an opportunity there for HR people to ask the right questions.
Yeah, and I think HR, one of the things I've seen that really trips up a lot of these projects is people think, okay, we're gonna point, I'll just use Copilot as an example. We're gonna point Copilot at SharePoint, at our SharePoint, our HR SharePoint, and like we're gonna get, that's it. It's gonna solve, you could just ask it and it's gonna find everything that's gonna be great, right? And Max will agree with me. For the last, I started out my career as a SharePoint portal administrator, SharePoint portal server in 2001. Can I just say I'm old? I started when I was 9. These are not gray hairs. But even back then, the SharePoint practitioners, us SharePoint practitioners were always saying, well, you need to organize things, you need to keep the versions, you need to tag your documents, blah, blah. There were all these best practices that we went into organizations and they totally ignored us. And you know what's happening now? They're all coming back and saying, we should have done that thing you told us 12 years ago. So, and I find some HR departments are the worst in this regard because, they want to keep everything. They may need, there may be a legal requirement for them to keep everything, but it's not organized in such a way that if I pointed Copilot at it, it could tell me what the latest version is.
Yeah.
So there's work to be done. There's also work to be done. And IT can often help with this work. This is some work that IT may know how to do. They may have done SharePoint work before, I don't know, or it's similar, I'm just using
Yeah.
SharePoint things.
Yeah.
And you're right, Andrea, and it's actually hard, right? This is not like, again, you said there's no magic wand before, but I think we can use the same, reference here. Cleaning up is hard. Having good data is hard, and people always say, I'm so swamped, I'll get to it next week," and you never get to it, right? So just carving out a little bit of time to do some of that work, working with IT and getting some data from them, also some input, working with an expert on the side to speed up the process. I think that goes a long way because,
Yeah.
again, that's the backbone of a lot of your AI at the end of the day. So if you want to have good AI, you gotta have good data.
I wonder.
Later on this one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andrea. What was that?
I said on this one, it's painting now or paint later.
Yeah.
No, because how many orgs, wait a minute, how many orgs, before I forget, if I'm old, I might forget. How many orgs, I'm just kidding. How many orgs have turned on Copilot and then they realized that their SharePoint permissions weren't very good because people would see stuff they weren't supposed to see. It's not Copilot's fault. It's that it hadn't been permissioned properly in SharePoint. And, now they have to turn it right off. This has been a consistent theme.
And thank goodness with that, probably it's the enterprise version that it's still internal. But imagine having
Doesn't
the features that now you're sending data to the ether and now it's out there and very risky for a potential data leak. And
Let me tell you, I've seen people say, because, the thing is, in a lot of these kind of document management tools, very seldom do people use the search. People normally browse. But once you turn on, some kind of AI, they're like, oh, I'm just going to ask the question. Oh, how much does the president make of our company? And guess what? If there's some spreadsheet out there that isn't, secured correctly, and I'm saying this because I've seen it, they're going to get that answer. They could have gotten it before, but they didn't, they didn't. But now, asking the question is cool.
in your fingertips.
Yeah. So again, these are all things HR needs to be especially careful about, but also can warn the rest of the organization.
So what is one thing that HR professionals can do this week to start strengthening this partnership with IT?
For me, it's gonna be very basic. If you're a remote company, you schedule a, water cooler break, water cooler Teams meeting, whatever it is, and just chat. Make that connection. If you're in the office, just stop by and, say, let's catch up. I want to understand what you're doing. Never start with, this is what I want, right? Start with what are you doing? How do you enjoy this? Blah, blah, blah. So start thinking about the other person before you start thinking about yourself.
I title mine "Let's Connect." Alina in a parentheses, Alina dash, and then the person's name, and I just say "Let's connect," and then it's just a 30-minute.
Like it. I love it.
They'll send donuts. I think that's always good, right?
Andrea, any thoughts on your end?
About strengthening the relationship in general. I hate to say this, but this is a culture thing, right? So I think focusing on that culture piece of the organization and not specifically saying, oh, you guys in IT are so mean to us. You guys in IT don't talk to us. We don't, that's not helpful, right? If there is a dysfunction, then, focusing on the culture more broadly, I think is also helpful. Again, this is where IT HR can really be helpful. So I would look at that. And again, those kind of culture initiatives will be coming from higher up. So, and HR always has, the boss's ear, right? So I think that, uh,
Questionable.
question.
Sometimes.
So
Sometimes.
I've not been in HR then, but clearly if I just assumed.
No, that and I think this is where like even HR people want to be more they want to be at the table and they want to be more
Yeah.
strategic. And there is companies who look at HR people as the police or the compliance team and the team that is reactive and gets stuff done but not really strategic.
Mhm.
And I mean, we've been fighting this getting a seat at the table for a long time in our function from the perspective of like bring us early in when projects start or when things start to happen at the top, which is full circle back to your initial point is like it got to start at the top. And if the alignment is not coming from the leadership at the C-suite level, then the rest of the functions
Gonna be
are
difficult. It's going to be difficult. But you know what? Maybe this is where we start. We start with some kind of strategy team, AI strategy, right? Let's just talk AI strategy and bring IT and HR and operations and whoever makes sense in your organization. Leadership brings that strategy team together. And this is where we start to formulate our common language. And we understand what the overall picture is, and we contribute to the strategy, based on where we are, and we all have we're driving to the same overall picture. So maybe that's also what we need to do. I mean, I think in the meantime, people are going to want to use AI anyway. So, using whatever tool, if your organization has approved that tool, using and getting good at that tool and only using it for approved uses is the first step. But I do think at some point you have to say, okay, we need to take now, come back up to a higher level and say what is such strategy orientation.
Thank you. This was I love our conversation. I think we took it in so many different levels, and I love all the different nuggets, the shared language and the support at the top, and the data is at the core, and being able like change management and people and functions and data privacy. I mean, we talked about so many different things. Anything else you want to share as we close, any advice or any thoughts about how could Witham support organizations in this adoption or integration? I think I'm going to start using integration more.
I think there are two pieces. I do one piece and Max does the other. Right? So when we talk about Max, we'll talk about data security, and securing the data and all of that good stuff, because that's his expertise. For me, again, I think what we do a quick 3-week AI readiness assessment where we cover what we call the 5 foundations of AI readiness. And the first one is clear direction from leadership, by the way. It is designed to talk to leaders, talk to C-suite director level folks. It's not a general thing for everybody. And we cover a lot of things. We cover data readiness. And at the end of that, we do a few use cases. Okay, based on what you told us, what are some good use cases that you could start with? And I think that assessment, is a very good way to get started. But there's a lot more because once you start implementing it, now you need maps. So I'll let you take that through Seleniums.
Yeah, just to add to this, right, here at Witham, we have a lot of silos, but we have the trusted relationship. So if I'm on a call with a customer and I was like, well, this is leaning into AI adoption, AI strategy, I bring Andrea in, and vice versa, right? So it's something that we can cover it all, right? The security is a big aspect, and that's something we're very strong at. The AI readiness adoption, very strong at. But again, depends on where help is needed, right? It's not like a group of people saying you need to do it all and we'll do everything for you. Actually, we like to push things over to the client because at the end of the day, we're kind of in and out, right? We want to make sure they succeed, but we're not gonna stay there forever and be employees of that organization. So it's all about knowledge transfer, making sure they understand what they own, what they have, what their roadmap looks like, where they should go next. So that makes a big difference compared to companies that kind of just do one project, they do everything for the client, and then they move on.
Thank you.